Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Dear White People, Volume 2, Chapter 7. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. I was thinking about it that time.
I feel like you negated it a little bit by, really emphasizing that you were getting it right. You gotta play it cool.
Baby steps.
Yeah, we'll get there. Maybe by the last episode.
Baby steps. Then I'll completely forget by the time Season 3 rolls around, and I will butcher that just as much as I've been butchering Season 2's titles. Anyway, also, I think the biggest problem is that I expect another title at the end. Saying just Volume 2, Chapter whatever, I always expect another title. Because it just sounds like Season something, Episode something.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you.
It's called... But that is the name. The chapter is the name, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, minor quibbles of their naming system. It is clean and neat, I'll give them that. I do appreciate how neat it is, but... so you finally get your Troy episode.
I did.
You get a Troy episode, you got moons falling out of the sky, you got talking dogs.
I had a blast with this episode.
Ah, did you? Yes.
Yeah.
Apparently so have my cats. My cats are running around behind me, making all sorts of chaos. No, so it's a Troy episode, and it's very much... This is going to sound bizarre, given some of the weird stuff that happens in it, but it's almost exactly what a Troy episode was probably going to be, in the sense that it's about him trying to find who he is. Because a big part of his thing since the start of the show is that he's not really been doing his thing, he's been doing his father's thing.
He's been the career politician, essentially.
Yeah, but again, not through his own choice, through what his father's pushing him forwards. And it's always had that kind of vibe where he's been kind of rebelling against it. You know, he did the affair with the older women last season, everything.
Obviously, the big climatic ending of the season.
Of course, but I mean, I think we've seen that clip of him smashing that window now about
a million times. Yeah.
It's been a lot, but so we're finally dealing with his kind of side of all this, and he tries a bit of stand-up comedy. That's how we start the episode. After your obligatory narration bit with Gus.
Yeah.
Always amusing. There was a Jar Jar Binks jab even in the narration.
There
There
was.
Yes. So, cats, will you calm down? Dude, they're chasing each other around my feet. It's distracting. Anyway, so he tries a bit of stand-up comedy, and he bombs hard. It's painful.
Glorious.
It is painful to watch.
Oh, this is one of my favorite types of comedy, where it's just awkward. It's a very British comedy. It's what I expect to have like a Ricky Gervais show.
It's
just awkward, and you're just waiting to feel the room.
It's funny because it's in a show. Had you actually went to a stand-up club and this happened, you wouldn't.
I would find it amusing.
You wouldn't be laughing out loud though, right?
I'd be sniggering a little bit. I'm having a bit of a chuckle to myself.
Yeah, maybe that's just the sign of how evil you are.
I think it probably is.
Not that I don't enjoy a bit of awkward humour. This for me didn't feel... I feel like what you're referencing this to, or comparing this to, I think there's a bit more bite to that usually, whereas this is a bit more... like absolute dead, because I think when someone in the office, whether it be Ricky Gervais or Michael Scott and Steve Carell in the American version, whatever one it is, it's typically they'll say something outlandish they think is great, whereas this is just like a really sad, pathetic attempt of stand-up comedy, and it's just falling flat. It's like so it's like he's not quite realised where the joke is supposed to be yet, and everyone else is just kind of staring at him. He comes off stage, and surely enough, Joe's there, Reggie's there, Lionel's there, and they're like, that was something.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So the guy goes on after him, makes a joke. He makes a very specific joke where I'm sure I've heard before. This exact joke where he says,
it's the IT support, and he called up and he said he couldn't understand me.
Where did I hear that recently? Like I've heard that joke in the past like few months. I don't know who I've heard it from. I don't know what stand-up it was, or I think it was a stand-up.
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a fairly obvious joke to make if you're a comedian of.
It does, but I've heard that one very recently.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't help you.
Okay, fair enough.
But hey, but that makes everyone laugh. But it's got a bite to it. It's got a bit of bite. Killen knows what his joke is, as opposed to Troy, who was just kind of waffling. He was trying to do that thing that comedians do. Is like it's that old joke that whenever someone tries stand-up comedy, they think it's easy because you point out something and you just roll with the pointing it out. So he tries to do that, and it fails miserably. But it kind of ties into who his character is right now, because his revelation over the course of the episode, because he goes on this almost a vision quest. Like in a different TV show, this would be a vision quest because they're trying to figure out how to save the world or something. In this show, he's just on mushrooms.
He does call it a quest a couple of times.
It does, but even it was the way Kurt at one point, it was when he was talking to Reggie, asking Reggie for answers. Kurt just walks up and says it's a quest and walks off. It felt like such the random thing that happens on a vision quest that it was like, okay, it's a vision quest, but it's within the context of a college campus. So
no, it was.
But where was it going? Yeah, so it ties into his sort of discovery here, where he's realizing that he hasn't really been paying attention to everyone else. Like his comedy has no meat to it because he doesn't actually understand how everyone else around him feels. He kind of realizes over the course of this episode that he's kind of like his father, and that he uses other people, but doesn't actually understand how they feel or consider their feelings.
Yeah.
As he's doing it, and because of that, because I think to be funny, you have to be able to empathize with the other people and read what they will also see as funny as something you would
It's
joke
true
about.
because the two weirdly defend the pastiche guys here. When they're bringing, when they're coming to try, and it's like, hey, if you want to do comedy, you got to have an angle, right? You got to have your thing. And as much as these guys are all dicks, they're kind of like they know their audience.
Oh yeah, they're pompous dicks, but they're doing jokes for other pompous dicks, so they know what
right. So it works.
Yeah. No, it's. I think it extends to just writing in general. We've spoken about this in the past and how writers and to an extent directors and anyone in the creative field typically will be very liberal, and the reason why they'll be very liberal is because in order to actually write good stories, you have to empathize with your characters. You have to understand what makes people tick, and if you can understand those things and think about them, then you typically care and sympathize and empathize. Because,
as a general rule,
yeah. There's exceptions, but typically that's why people in Hollywood these days are pretty liberal people on the whole.
Yeah.
And I think that extends to stand-up comedians. I think stand-up... I mean, sure, don't get me wrong, I'm sure you get your right-wing nut-job comedians where all the humour is based on things they would think is funny, but most good stand-up comedians, they'll use a lot of racy topics, but they'll handle them in a way that's like, hey, let's have an open conversation about this and point out the stupid shit we do.
I also think the sad part about, the other group of, the ones who are just on that shite.
Oh yeah, the mean ones who are just...
Yeah.
It's basically just hate speech as comedy, yeah.
The problem is, there's an audience for that as well.
Oh, there is, yeah.
So that's why there are some successful ones of those too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think here, Troy's at an upstanding college. He's speaking to a little... it's just this little club with all these college students. So his audience here... that's not to say that his jokes would play for the other crowd either. They wouldn't, I don't think.
No,
but
well, that's the thing. It's not that they were wrong for the audience. It's just that they had nothing to them.
Yes, there was nothing there. And then it got to a point where instead of being racy, he was just basically being sexist at one point.
Yeah, because it's why like the pastiche guys, their stuff probably doesn't play in that room.
No, it wouldn't. No, you're right.
But they clearly are successful in their area. But they're not going in there and doing it to that audience because they know better than that.
Yeah, faults and all, they know who they are.
Yeah.
Whereas Troy clearly doesn't, and Troy kind of goes on this quest. And there's some stuff here where it's like I was hard to tell at some points, like what was real and what was just accented by to represent what he was going through. Because we get the flashback to when he peed in the fountain, right? And then his dad takes him into what he refers to. It's like the Illuminati, right? It's like they're all in shadow, and it was very Mr. Robot. It's like we're only 1% of the 1% are black, and he's like, oh, we've all these expectations, but they're all in shadows. They're all in, And it was like, all right, I'm fairly certain that Troy's mind is kind of hyping this up.
A little,
like it wasn't like this. Maybe sure. I buy that his father took him into a room with maybe some colleagues who also have a vested interest and try to talk to him.
Probably these exact people.
Yes.
But they just weren't stood and lit that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Was it he refers to them later as the Black Justice League?
I think so. Yeah. So no, but I mean that stuff was kind of funny. I liked when he was saying, "Oh no, he's got a high tolerance." He's like, "No, the shrooms won't affect me," and then 2 seconds later, the moon falls out of the sky.
Drops out of the sky.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
It was.
That was pretty good. So he goes on this quest. He kind of talks to characters who are kind of important to him around the campus. and kind of discovers that, okay, he was friends with Reggie, and Reggie's kind of honest with him, but hey, like, you kind of, he realizes that he didn't acknowledge that, hey, he had feelings for Sam when I, intentionally got with Sam to further my political career.
Yeah.
And then cheated on her, and then in the flashback with Sam, it's like, oh shit, I cheated on you and didn't consider your feelings either. Which is interesting to note the little Joelle reaction shot when he mentioned, oh, I ruined what could have been between you and Reggie.
Yeah, she looks a bit mortified, doesn't she?
Yeah, and Joe's over there. Although Sam and Joe seem to be doing better as co-hosts of the show.
They do. She's getting a bit more speaking time.
Yes. That sounds
and they have
maybe...
a nice reaction to Troy just slapping up against the window.
Yeah, wanting to be interviewed on the show. Yeah, I mean, Troy was funny this episode. There's no doubt about that.
It was. So, I really enjoy this because I enjoy Vision quests in general because they bring that surrealist aspect to even grounded things. And it's the same here. It played it through the drugs, of course, but the way it has the same arc of the realization with the surrealist elements that they just play well for me.
Yeah, and then Sorbet shows up.
And speaks to him. Yeah,
and it's worth mentioning on the news show on Dear White People, they're talking about Silvio. Like that's out in the open. Lionel's exposed them.
Yeah, didn't take long.
Didn't take long. So I'm sure there'll be more than that. That was just like a little tease in this episode of what's happening there. But we so he has the talk with the dog, and the dog gets very existential, and asks him who he is, and he's like, "No, you're none of these options. You're none of them. You're nothing, Troy. You haven't decided yet." And I actually really liked how it ended up with his father, because his father comes to see him, because we have the 2001 Space Odyssey sequence of him getting naked and getting the fountain, and then the jokes from Lionel and his boyfriend about him being naked, and he wakes up and his father's there, and his father's giving him the usual spiel, how could you do this, Troy? Do you understand how many people you've let down and disappointed, Troy? And I actually love that he brings up the Reggie stuff, like, because we were talking about how we'd never seen him like that when he was with Reggie.
And neither is Troy.
And neither is Troy. It was actually really beautiful because we pointed out that felt really different for him. It's like, oh, he's really like this. Oh, that's interesting. But to Troy, it's the same way. He's so obsessed with having Troy being his legacy that he's never really just treated him like another person. But he did that with, because it's almost like he has to be removed a little bit to kind of look at a person like that.
Yeah, that's it. Because like I said, Troy is his legacy. It's not for Troy. It's for him. That's what that's what Troy basically says to him. Whereas with Reggie, he doesn't have to worry about that because it's not his legacy, right? It's just someone else. So he can be a bit more objective and more personal. Which
actually makes him a better father figure to Reggie than does Troy.
It does, yeah.
But it's interesting because Troy starts smoking in front of him as a kind of power play, but basically to kind of show that he's not the fuddy-duddy that Troy's always believed him to be, but to kind of acknowledge that he's right, because I feel like him also smoking, but then they kind of showed him the poster with the lock him up kind of written on his campaign poster. To me, that felt like, okay, I acknowledge that you may have a point, that I didn't really give you a chance to be who you are, but here's why. Like, this is the world you're trying to find yourself in. You don't have the luxury of, like, soul searching, is what he's trying to say. Whether he's right or not is open for debate, but I think that's the point that he's making as he hands him that poster. But no, so that was a fun exploration of Troy, and of course it ends with him actually going back to the stand-up and actually hitting with some jokes, and the jokes are based on him realising that he's been kind of a shitty person and kind of acknowledging his faults and using that to kind of say, hey, we can do better than this. Here's what happens when you screw up, and it's, is a lot funnier.
It's very self-deprecating, and again, a type of humour I enjoy.
Yes, I also enjoy self-deprecating humour. But it's very honest, and I think that's the key here, is that before he was kind of faking it, and then here he's like, no, like, I actually care about this. I want to say this because I want to talk about my own faults. Yeah. And maybe that's him on the path to actually finding himself. If any of us really find ourselves in life, I don't know if we do.
I do realise his journey in this episode. For him, it's about time that he got it. I think it's really interesting to see him with the Pastiche guys, because we don't see them that often as people, whereas in here they're kind of just normal guys hanging around with him.
Yeah, it was the same with the Reggie episode as well. When Reggie was hanging around with them, I feel like we get a little bit more of them this year in terms of they're not just the antagonists.
Last year they're very much villainous, right?
Yeah. Again, it's kind of the whole thing with the show is the layers and the idea that people are more than just one thing. And we're seeing that they're actually and we've seen this before as well, but we're seeing here that they actually get along with Troy quite well.
Troy considers them his friends.
Yeah, but it's also worth pointing out that when Reggie talks to him about it, he's like, "Hey, you're kind of the token black guy in the group, in the white group. That's kind of who you are." That's how he sees him.
I thought it was really funny though that the Prestige guys did reference that. It's like, hey, well, we need a black guy on the team so we can make these jokes.
Hmm.
So they're acknowledging that as well. But in a way, it's kind of a little bit more accepting of him. It's like, they're writing it off as that, as, oh, we need you as a token black guy so we can make the jokes. But because they're so aware of that, it's almost like you're not really. That's just the image they're portraying.
Well, it depends. I think there's more nuance there, perhaps. It depends how they mean it, because I feel like that could come off as really, like, oh, we want the token black guy in our group, so, welcome, you can be this.
It didn't read like that in the scene to me, though.
Well, that's how his father sees it, because, Troy's father says, hey, like, they're laughing at you, not with you. Like, he sees it that way. And you can kind of see where that argument comes from. It's like, hey, we want a black guy around so we can make black jokes. If that's all of his purposes, if that's all they want him there for, then he is just a puppet to them now as well.
No, it's true. And, there's no definitive answer in this episode. Like I said, they feel genuine when they're talking to Troy, but I don't know if that's just a good act. And, his father and Reggie are right.
Yeah, no, I mean, they do seem genuine in this episode. I mean, but hey, that's kind of the point of this show, is to actually kind of look at these types of things and say, is there an answer to this? Even the rich preppy white guys even aren't just the image of the rich preppy white guy that you have that.
That is, yeah.
Yeah, so, but hey, that's Troy's episode, which you finally got after.
Did, which means we're probably not getting a second one, but I'm going to bank on every episode being a Troy episode from here on out.
But yeah, you finally got a Troy episode. No, it was a really solid journey. It was a really personal one, and I feel like, it was dealing with, again, a very different type of character in this situation. This was, it announces at the start of the episode, but the idea that he's someone who has to deal with this from a legacy perspective, where he has all this pressure put upon him to be this shining example of what the perfect black man can be.
The celebrity kid. Right.
Yeah, he's a shining example. His father's like, no, you should prove what a black man can be, but that's like so much pressure, and he's never given a chance to actually discover who he actually is.
Yeah.
And
I think it's funny, I'm joking. I'm going to keep saying the next one's going to be a Troy episode. I'm actually really intrigued for the next Troy episode to see what the next part of his arc is. What's the next part of the story that we tell from his perspective?
Where does he go from here? Yeah.
Yeah. Like what? Because ultimately, this episode is saying he has a perspective, but we don't know what that is going forward.
Yeah. He also ends the episode with looking at the camera. We're continuing this trend of looking at the camera at the end of the episodes. Yeah. We also, I think it's interesting that, it seems like there's a path where him and Sam can be friends now. It feels like Coco's kind of, feels the most, I'm not saying it's impossible to repair that bridge, but it definitely feels like, because when she says she's made sacrifices, we actually know what she means by that. We've seen the sacrifices she's made because of Troy. When she says, "Oh, I had to get my way out of the path of you as the tornado," I'm like, yeah, we've actually kind of seen that. We've seen what she means by that.
Yeah.
And Troy's oblivious. Troy doesn't know.
Well, how could he?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the point, though, is that she didn't even feel like she could tell him because of who he is.
No, exactly. But maybe going forward he can find out. Because he's now striving to be not necessarily a better person, but a more real person.
Maybe he will, but that's not really his choice to make. That bridge just might be burned forever because of who he was.
It might be. Yeah.
So I think that was definitely the most severe one. Whereas, Reggie and Troy are still friends, despite the fact that whatever happened. Oh, by the way, it reminds me, I did laugh a lot at the. He helped Sam with a computer, but he intentionally planted a small virus just so that she'd have to ask for help again. And then Troy's like, yeah, but what if she goes to someone else because you didn't fix it properly the first time? He's like, damn.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought as well. And I was like, yeah, that was not a great move, Reggie.
That cracked me up. But no, there you go. That is the Away People Chapter 7. So
have we got any genuine guesses on who's next?
Gabe. Not Gabe yet.
Okay. But, okay, there's nothing in this episode to swing to Gabe.
He's not even in the episode at all.
But, I I think based on the episode, I'd probably swing back around to a Sam episode.
I'm not going to lie.
Explore that side of the her pushing the Silvio story.
The reason why I guess Gabe is because the image that came up on Netflix for the next one was Sam and Gabe in the image. So one of us is right.
Oh, I didn't see the next image. I closed Netflix before that came up.
I took the risk of Gabe because I feel like Sam might be saved for the finale, or maybe the one before the finale. But it could be Sam. It could be. But that's my thing.
Well, one of us might be right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's looking like one of us probably right, but we'll find out. Not that it really matters. You had to wait. I won just by you having to wait this long for a Troy episode. So
yeah,
I don't
but
care.
I got there, so I was right eventually.
You were right after being incorrect 5 times. Very good. So that is that is the April Chapter 7. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us in the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can do that over there. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. And we will see you next time.